Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Paranormal the New Normal. I know, two in a row again today. That's 4 episodes this weekend. God, you guys are lucky I'm such a good podcaster. But always happy to be back and try and make the world seem a little more normal. Does it ever happen? No, not usually. Not usually. But we still persist on and we still have these conversations because one day maybe it will happen. And this conversation is going to be no different because I am very happy to have on the show today Cheryl Stelte, a spiritual coach and master trauma healer. Welcome, Cheryl. It is amazing to have you.
I'm just so happy to be here for your message out there that the paranormal is the new normal. I'm just like right on, Jeremy.
It seems to be it seems like I picked a title, a name for the show that everybody seems to mold with. I couldn't have planned it better if I tried. Actually, I like, I like making up phrases that people will remember, and that one seemed to stick in my head when I came up with it. But Cheryl, tell us what brought you down the paranormal spiritual path in life.
Well, the first thing that happened when I was 32 years old, I believe, almost 33. Might have been 33, but anyway, so half my life ago, well, almost half my life ago, and I was on the beach and I had gone to see a chiropractor and he did this kinesiology on me and sort of energy clearing stuff. And I'd never experienced anything like it. And, back in those days, over 30 years ago, spirituality was definitely not a thing. It was church or whatever it was religion. And so spirituality, meditation, energy, none of that was discussed ever by anybody I knew. And so this friend of mine who had recommended this chiropractor, she was learning how to do kinesiology and was learning to work with energy. And we were at the beach and we were going to pick oysters on Vancouver Island. We are waiting for the tide to go out. So she said, how about if I practice kinesiology on you? I said, sure. So I lay down in the sand and she's doing all this finger testing, and she's saying, oh, it's this person. And she's saying all this stuff and she's clearing this, clearing that, and this. And suddenly there was this huge ball of white light hovering right above me. And it was filled with the most intense love, just so much love, more than I had ever felt. And I realized it was my deceased brother's spirit who had taken his life, my younger brother, about a year before that. And I was shocked. But I just started crying. I couldn't stop crying. The amount of love was so intense. And I'm waiting for her to stop talking so I can tell her about my experience. And she's continuing on. And she said, oh, the next one, it's your brother. And then she said, oh my God, he's here. And I said, I know. And he spoke to me through her at the beginning of that weekend. And his message was for me to start meditating.
Which I mean, well, okay, well, I'm actually not even try to ponder on that because I'm kind of curious to find out. I'm sure you did start meditating, but what happened when you did?
Well, the funny thing is, Jeremy, I didn't know anything about this spirituality stuff. And by the end of the weekend, I could hear him. I could understand what he was saying. And I knew when he was around and when he wasn't. So I thought he wanted me to meditate to learn more about this spirituality and communicating with him. And so I got on the phone when I went back to town after the weekend and phoned these meditation places. And they all said, so why do you want to learn to meditate? I said, well, so I can speak with my deceased brother's spirit. And they all said, sorry, we don't have that kind of meditation. So I was very confused. I didn't understand. Well, isn't this spirituality? I didn't understand. But what I realized later was that, he had taken his life. So depression, a lot going on in his life. And I was suffering from severe depression. And it was at that time when diagnosing depression was just becoming a thing. And a friend of mine had been diagnosed and she went on medication. And I looked at this brochure that she gave me and I thought, wow, I think I am. And my doctor said, you're severely depressed. And he put me on medication. And I'd just been on it for a while, a few months, not that long. And so I realized later that the reason he wanted me to meditate was to move beyond my depression. And so after I felt, was turned down by these meditation places, I was inside a building that same day, and there was a sign on a door in the hallway, meditation classes starting, and it was the following night. So we didn't have cell phones then, so I grabbed the little phone number and called and booked myself. I registered, but I didn't say that when she said, why do you want to learn to meditate? I said, well, I'm curious. and so it was for a number of months that I could feel his presence at times. And so I learned to meditate, but what it led me to was a different style of meditation that I was not taught. When I first learned to meditate, the teacher wanted us to focus on the breath as it entered and left the nostrils. And so I could do that and keep my focus there. And it was all about keeping your focus there. But my body would want to take long breaths eventually, move into long breaths. And the only reason I can think of was because I grew up in Alberta where it's really cold. And in the winters, and I was a skinny little kid, and I'd be out so many times. And I remember my mother, frightened us around, don't breathe through your mouth. You always breathe through your nose because your lungs could freeze. And it's true.
Yeah.
So I'd be shivering and walking at times, and I start to huff and puff, and then I would get scared as a little girl. So I started, and I couldn't breathe through my nose too well because I was so cold and shivering. So I started taking long breaths. And I noticed one day that when I took really long breaths, I would stop shivering. And so I developed this breath. So I started to do that in the meditation. And what that was doing, unknowingly, it was shifting my brain function and giving me access to my subconscious and all the wounds and traumas that created the depression to begin with. And so I started to learn how to process that. And I couldn't find any information in any books on this sort of thing. So I just continued on my own.
Which, I mean, yeah, definitely back then in I believe you said it was 90s, right? Or you said this took place in the 90s. I mean, back in the 90s.
Early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, back in the 90s when I was a kid, this type of stuff was all considered charlatans, blah, blah, blah. Like, you didn't go to the little house that did this on Main Street because they're just going to steal your money. And so, I mean, yeah, the world was not ready for this type of work yet. We're slowly getting there. We're slowly getting there. That's for damn sure. We're slowly getting there. I mean, the world is now more spiritual than it ever has been since, at least in the last few hundred years. But, well, in the West, I should say, because the East has always been spiritual and always will be spiritual. But in the West, we haven't been like this for 300 years at least, and it's incredible to see this happening. I'm a big believer that we have a huge spiritual awakening coming in the next few years, and it's going to open a majority of people's minds to all of this. And I'm guessing you agree with me on that.
I agree with you very much. Very much. We're ramping up. We're ramping up, folks.
Exactly. So when did you start healing? When did you decide to become a coach, make it into an actual lifestyle?
Yeah, so it started very soon after, and those meditations really opened up. It was like the doors to spirituality just flung open. And I was introduced to shamanism very soon after that and started studying and practicing shamanism, going on retreats and that sort of thing. And I learned to heal myself and heal others. I learned how to heal others and that sort of thing, and started to view the world very differently, and different, different perspectives. And so some of the people around me who knew me well noticed the shifts in me, noticed me changing quite quickly. And they wanted some of what I had. So they're, can you teach me? Can you teach me? And so I started leading meditations. I started doing healings, and I started to look into, I think we're all curious. We want to be psychic or see if we are. So I dabbled in that a little bit, and I was surprised, at what I got, but never went down that road
Yeah.
really hard, because you've got to, the more you heal your wounds, you're going to become psychic in some way. We're going to open up to other beings and that sort of thing. And then I started studying different healing modalities. I became a Reiki master. I got my yoga teacher training. I learned to be a retreat guide. I did my own vision quests before that, and my own retreats, and it goes on and on. And I became a certified spiritual coach and mentor, and taught through another school. But it was early on I started helping people part-time, and I also trained with Denise Lynn and did house blessings, clearing energy and that sort of thing, and learned to remove spirits from homes, from people's homes and buildings through shamanism, and it goes on and on. But what I like about, your title is just, if people could just inhale your title, the truth that the paranormal, it truly is becoming the new normal. And so there's spirits all over the place. There's spirits all around. And we have every right and capacity to call in spirits that'll help us. So if you're, some people will say, well, I ask my guides this, and ask who are your guides? It's kind of like, we don't just pick up the phone and it's a party line anymore. We don't just pick up the phone and hope the right person's going to be there for us. We want to be very specific about who we're calling in. And so I teach people how to call in spirit, and exactly who do you connect with, because we are spirit in this human body. Everything is spirit. We could say everything is God, everything is divine, everything.
Oh, your audio cut out, I think.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, that was strange.
It happens.
A little energy reaction there, maybe. That's never happened like that before. But so everything is spirit, and we can tune into everything as spirit. We are spirit. We are all one. We are all connected. Everything is divine. And we're so conditioned to be in fear. We're so conditioned to feel like we're separate. And the truth is, it's really quite silly. And I was thinking this morning how we label people and events and places and things bad and good. Everything is divine. Everything's serving us. We're all connected. We're part of the same fabric. And when we open ourselves up to that, it's amazing what can come through. But for me, it's not so much about, I meet people. I do a lot of chakra readings. I do a lot of chakra readings on people. I can see energy now, and I see what's going on. And people are always like, wow, I feel so seen. I feel so seen, because I see so deeply, and I really open up to what it is they need to hear. And
so a lot to unpack there. And I have worked with a Reiki master, so Reiki is the freaking real deal. I honestly, I've been meaning to reach out to her again, because God, I could actually use some of that in my life again. I felt like such a better person when I had Reiki being done on a regular basis. You literally can feel the darkness being pulled out of you. It's phenomenal. I was a skeptic of it until I had it done, and then I just had my eyes opened completely, and I was like, wow, this is unbelievably amazing. But You mentioned you clear house. You've done some clearing of houses and other clearings in the past, and one of my that leads me to one of my favorite questions asked in this show. What was the most amazing experience you had during your clearing process?
During a clearing in a house?
Well, anywhere really, but doesn't have to be a house. Just anywhere you cleared a spirit.
Oh, it was, I remember my daughter she was quite young. I think she was 19 or 20, and she had moved out on her own and she was living with two other people. And she knew I was into spirituality, but she wasn't so interested herself. And I had done this weekend workshop. It was a weekend training on how to remove spirits from buildings and that sort of thing. And I was telling her a little bit about it. And she said, "That's so weird that you're telling me this, Mom, because I've had a couple of friends come into our house that we're sharing and say that there's something, there's spirits in there or something, there's something weird. It doesn't feel good in the house." And one of her friends that was living in the house, she was concerned that she was taking drugs. And, everybody agreed in the house, this is not a party house. There's not a lot of drinking. There's absolutely no drugs, because my daughter didn't do drugs and had laid all these ground rules. And she just was not feeling right in the house and concerned about this one relationship. And so I said, "Okay, well, do you want me to see if there's any spirits in the house?" So I did all the work, and there were two, and it was interesting. One of them was off the floor, this guy, and he was up like with his head near the ceiling and in the corner in the house in one of the bedrooms. And so I removed those spirits, and it's really about, you sort of open the portal to allow them to go to the light. And it's very important that you do the work properly through this method. So I felt very successful in it, and could feel the energy of these spirits. They don't go to the light because they feel unworthy. They're unhappy. They're angry, whatever's going on. And I've helped a number of spirits go to the light, and I've removed spirits from buildings. And it's important to fill the space with light so they don't want to come in. So there was a lack of light in the house. And it was almost immediate after that, my daughter discovered that, in fact, her friend was into drugs, and kicked her out. Said, "We agreed. We had this agreement. You need to leave." And she left. She put up a bit of a fuss in the beginning, but then left, and she got a new roommate who didn't do drugs, and everything was fine. And the living situation improved tremendously. So sometimes, these beings can really have an effect on people, but also spirits, the word, like you think of drink, alcohol, spirits, the word came because spirits, when you drink alcohol or you do drugs, you leave your body, and it opens you up to attract spirits, and the not nice spirits. So we could say negative spirits and positive spirits around us. There's light beings of light. It's very interesting.
It's funny you mentioned beings of light, because I was actually going to be my next question is, because you talked about people calling to their spirit guides. A lot of people I've talked to, they call to either collectives of angels or an archangel. There's a lot of people out there that reach out to angels. My question was going to be, do you believe that angels can be called? Do you believe they're a real entity in this universe, or what's your opinion on it?
Absolutely. One of my coolest angel experiences, I was in my home office back in Vancouver, and I'm doing this energy healing on this woman. And there's this giant angel in the room all of a sudden, and its head is almost touching the ceiling. I mean, we're talking a giant angel, and it was pure white. And I've seen different kinds of angels, blue ones, small ones. It's interesting. And I don't consider myself an expert on angels. And this angel was just so strongly there. And this is, over a decade ago. Anyway, and I said to the woman, "So do you believe in angels?" "Oh, yes, I do. I call my angels in every day." I said, "Well, you have one giant angel on your left side right now in this room." And she said, "I'm not surprised at all." Like, wow. So yes, calling in angels is a really good thing. And I believe that many of us have, if not all of us, have angelic beings around us helping us. But the more we're engaged with them when we ask for help, they show up.
And I mean, I, for one, am pretty sure if someone told me there was an angel on the side of me, I'd be a little freaking out, like, what did I do? But it's, I mean, part of me would want to be like, hey, what's up, Castiel? But it's, my pop culture side always has to come out a little bit. But I mean, see, for a long time, I personally didn't believe in angels, demons, or any of that. I thought it was all religious foolery, basically. I thought it was all just stories and legends. I didn't think it was anything to it. But I've definitely talked to enough people who talk to them to know that they do exist and to know that they may not be the harp playing winged creatures we all like to picture through what we were taught in religion as kids. But they do exist. They're in different forms, and what they actually are, who knows? But whether they're ultra terrestrial, extraterrestrial, like who really knows what they actually are? But I mean, the same goes for demons, though. Which I mean, because there's got to be yin and yang in this world. That if there's good, there's bad. So, have you had any experience with the darker side of this all? Have you had any experience with demons or any other dark entity?
And entities. I kind of hate to say it, but sometimes I pull entities out of people because, like I was saying, if we experience severe trauma, especially early on, we learn to leave our body. Our spirit leaves our body. It's too dangerous, or the soul can become fragmented, and these other beings can come in and they become a match for us. And so I have a couple strong opinions on entities. I practiced the last energy healing training that I did. We were at our sort of final, we're at this retreat, and I can't remember if we were there 1 or 2 weeks. It was for sure a week. And so all these people are doing healings, and then it became the thing. People started pulling out these entities, and what a gong show it was. And this whole hotel is filled with all these entities now. But it became such a fight. There are these fights to try and get the entity out, but the person, the client, wasn't ready to release it. So they're trying to let it go, but there's still too much of a match. And I mean, it was crazy. And I thought, this is just ridiculous. To me, this isn't what healing is about. You want to wrestle with an entity for an hour and a half and try and get it out of someone that, really doesn't want it to leave. And so I had experiences with entities, but my view is the entity comes in because there's a match in us. There's some sort of trauma or wound that's stored in our being, and there's a match. And when we do our personal work, so once I work with people for a while, I do enough healing, I clear those wounds and bring more light into them, then the entity becomes uncomfortable. It's no longer a match. And those entities, removing an entity really is not hard, because I only pull out the ones that want to go because they're no longer comfortable in the environment because there's too much light. And then I can send them to the light. I can help them get there. And that's really this is the paranormal becoming the normal. To me, is about humanity evolving and rising more into the light that we are. We're in such denial of our light, and that brings in darkness. And so that's my view on entities. And then demons, I don't relate with that word. I'm sorry. There can be dark spirits. I removed one from a house. I was working with a woman, and her daughter said there's a spirit in the hallway, and it was really upsetting her, and she was about 13 years old, and she kept telling her mother there was a spirit in the hallway outside her bedroom door, and sometimes it would come in at night. And this girl was it was really making her so anxious. She was suffering more and more, and she said, "Can you check it out?" I said, "Well, let me see." So sure enough, there definitely was. But it's a lost soul. This I couldn't call him a demon. He was so lost. And it used to be farmland, and there was a whole story that went with it. And so when I removed that being, it was amazing because there were all these angels that came to help heal this man first, this spirit who couldn't move on, to help him realize that he had such a low opinion of himself. He believed he was bad to the core and unworthy of going to the light. So I couldn't get him to go to the light, but all these angels came and helped, and the healing went on for hours. And it was all taken care of. And then he evolved enough to go to the light. And then with the daughter and the mother, I taught them how to keep more light in the house and have it radiate from them so no other spirits come in. And they loved it. They loved it. And the girl, all her anxiety went away, and she believed 100% that that spirit was gone, and she was very grateful. I don't advertise any of this work. I don't like for me to be talking about this. These are my secrets. This is my secret stuff.
Well, I appreciate you sharing them with us. That's for damn sure. And you wouldn't know you don't talk about them because you honestly seem like a natural for wanting to share your message and share your experiences. So I appreciate you wanting to actually share them with me. Though this is what the show is all about. Is I want people to hear these experiences so they realize that there's these things that actually exist out there that they need to recognize. Because once we all recognize it and know how to deal with it, dark entities are going to be a minimalist thing of the past. Like it's not going to be a problem anymore because we're all going to know how to keep them away, and then they're screwed because where are they going to go? Well, I guess I can go to Vegas because why not? There's enough darkness there for everybody. But other than that, like where are they going to go? It's just the world needs to see the light so they can stop living in the dark. Like
That's right.
I totally just came up with the name for this episode too. But okay, yeah, it's a point. It is a point of the show to show that paranormal is normal and that there's nothing to be. Okay, well, there are things to be scared of in this world. They're usually a little more furrier and flesh and bone. But on the spiritual side, there really is nothing to be scared of. It's just you said earlier that everything that happens for a reason, and it does. Everything we do is a learning process. Everything, whether it's a bad thing or good thing, everything is a learning experience, and we need to embrace it in order to get the lesson out of it that we were supposed to get. It's predetermined. I mean, I'm sure you're a believer in fate to some degree.
Thank you for saying that, Jeremy. You know, I just did a talk on a summit on Friday, and my talk title was "What was your soul thinking?" Because I'm on the same page. Everything is an opportunity for growth. Every single challenge, no matter what. And we're finally moving into this place of taking responsibility for what our soul signed up for. All our souls signed up for, if we have, horrible parents, we signed up for that to grow through. So the more we can look at ourselves and take responsibility for our lives and why we're here, the more we're going to grow and the more we help others even indirectly by raising our vibration. And so for me, it's all about healing and empowerment. So if part of someone's healing and empowerment is removing a spirit from their home, those two women, young, girl and the daughter and mother grew so much in learning these practices to be in their light and radiate it, and we could all use some of that, but we have to heal what's stopping us from doing it in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, the biggest problem with this world is there's so much outside influence, whether it be through television, movies, YouTube for the kids nowadays. I mean, there's so much influence and all these. What's the word I'm thinking of? There's so many of these influencers out there. Not what I want to say, but close enough. There's so many of these influencers that make us feel like we have to think certain ways. And this started back. I mean, it's always existed, but it really started hitting home in the late '90s, early 2000s, when the world became more open with the internet, and all of a sudden we see these people doing what they want to do out there in the world, and they're influencing everybody that want to be like them. If it's horrible. I mean, reality TV is one of the worst examples of it because it literally is just people trying to force normal folks to live their lives the same way these celebrities do, and it's not going to happen. You're not going to be a Kardashian. You're not going to be a Real Housewife. It's just not going to happen in life, and it's dampened the light in everybody. It's dampened the spiritual side of everybody even more. And I mean, you could say it was planned. You could say it probably was a mass idea thought of by some group of people to try to keep the world down. I would believe it for a second. It definitely could be a conspiracy. I wouldn't doubt it. But I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with this world, and the powers that be like that's happening. I think, at least.
Well, yeah, and really we're all influencers. Whenever we find something that really works for us, like I found healing and empowerment. So I've been sharing that with others. I've developed my own healing modality, the Azarius Energy Healing Certification Program, and I help a lot of people. But the thing is, if it's not going to work for everybody, all roads lead to Rome. There are multiple ways, but as long as we're all heading to Rome, it's to grow. To me, life is about growing and evolving as a human and also as a spirit. And so whatever is involved in that is to just be open. And we're so conditioned, and like the influencers you're speaking about, it just adds to more conditioning. And we're so conditioned to be in fear. We're so conditioned to be in fear, which creates a lack of safety and stability in the world. And so for me, it's becoming as clear a spirit in this lifetime as I can. And that's I teach my ACE, what I call my ACE method, to access your subconscious blocks, access all your traumas, clear them, and then empower yourself and reprogram your brain's neural pathway. So because we're influencing others all the time, and others are influencing us. But even when I had the plumber here yesterday, I don't know how my vibration is influencing that plumber. We had a somewhat personal conversation. He told me a little bit about his life, and he's going through a divorce, and life goes on. But we're all influencing, whether we're vocalizing it or not. And if the more we get into our light, and like here you are, Jeremy, you're an influencer. You're influencing, right?
You're not wrong. Everybody is an influencer, but not everybody has the following to really make it a effectful influence. I mean, I can maybe have 40, 60 people listen to an episode of my show, and maybe they take something out of it and better their life. But that's a microscopic quantity of people compared to the amount of people that need it in the world. And I'm not the only one. So yes, maybe everybody has something that they're getting a message from. But I know for a fact there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that don't look for messages. They don't look to learn. They don't look to grow. They just are content, or they think they are where they are in life, and they want to stay there. They don't see a reason to change. I know people personally that are exactly like that. So it's just one of those things.
And I have so much compassion for those people. I have so much compassion.
my 10-month-old just walked by and had the hugest smile on her face because she saw me. But so what was I say? So what is a master trauma healer? Because I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of different titles from people on my show, and that's not one that I've come across too often. So what what
I
does that
call
work consist
I
of?
call myself a master healer because I have just been doing this so long, and I'm so good at it. And so it's not tooting my own horn, but this is why I think I'm so good at it. Why I can call myself a master. I've mastered it. I've mastered. And what so many of my clients say, Cheryl, nobody goes as deep as you. I go deep. I go deep. Our traumas can begin from the moment of inception. I help so many people heal as a little fetus in the womb. If the mother experienced trauma, that little fetus experienced trauma. And those souls, the ones I help, came here to heal that, and they eventually find me. It's like all my clients, they've tried multiple modalities. And it's what they say, and it's what they tell their friends. I had one woman who had um, serious trust issues. Serious trust issues. She had taken her entire retirement investments and loaned it to someone, a business partner, who promised to pay her back. And the woman never did. And this woman is into her 70s now, still working because she can't afford to retire. Huge trust issue. So she's a healer herself. I help a lot of healers move to the next level, but they all have blocks. They all know they're blocked in some way. They know there's something going on in the subconscious. And so what she used to, she came to work with me, and she was really concerned she wouldn't get her money's worth because she'd been ripped off by so many programs. And I said, oh, I understand that. I give you a money back guarantee. If you're not happy, I said, we'll start off. You're going to give me a deposit. And if after 3 full sessions and a chakra reading, you're not happy with the results, I give you all your money back. And she said, okay. And then about halfway through working with me, and I just work with people initially one-on-one for 10 solid weeks, 10 weeks, and you're going to have a transformation, and you're going to become who you can't even imagine today. So she's somewhere in the middle, maybe near the end of that. And she told a friend of hers about me, and she said, I trust Cheryl with my life. I trust Cheryl with my life. And indirectly, we healed all her trust issues, which stemmed from her early childhood, even in the womb. And it's the thread of betrayal was just so prominent throughout her life. And she looked at herself as a victim, but it was when she owned it and saw that, oh no, this is one of the things I need to heal, then she made better choices for herself. But it developed trust to the point of, wow, for the first time in her life, she could trust someone else with her life. She knew, and it's not about me. I helped heal the block, and it's about, she let herself be totally held. She didn't have to worry. She knew I had her best interest at heart, no matter what. And so to me, there's nothing anybody can bring me that I can't handle. And I have the nerve to say that. I've been doing it a very long time. And
I love that confidence. I do love that confidence 100%. Everybody should be that confident about what they're doing in life. I wish I can go to my 9 to 5 daily job and just be that confident, like I'm gonna make a lot of money today. No. I do not have that confidence. I work in sales, and that confidence is hard to come by. I have the days where I walk in, I'm like, today's gonna be a good day. I'm gonna put a lot of money on the board. Other days, I'm just like, today's gonna be slow and dead night. Nothing's gonna happen. I'm just gonna have to stagger through 8 hours and hope that something happens. But I mean, it's that confidence is hard to come by in today's world. It really is, especially. I mean, oh, it doesn't really matter what country you live in. I mean, in the U.S. especially, but I know Canada is not exactly doing great right now either. So I mean, it's trying to survive in any country right now in life is just difficult, and that's why I think we are on the verge of a spiritual awakening. Because I think that's when everything's going to get slightly better. I think everything is going to kind of open up, and everybody's going to be able to live their lives easier, which will lead to people being more confident, which will lead to people discovering the paranormal more, and so on and so forth. It's a process. It's going to be a process, but it'll happen. I think, and there's also going to be something big. I think coming in 2027 that's going to make the world start to see itself more as a global people rather than a national people or stately people. It's going to be everybody's going to see themselves as one in the globe. I've been told and hinted at that something to do with extraterrestrials. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I kind of can hope it is. But I mean, 2027 is a year that's been talked about a lot. Have you heard anything about that, or has that come across your path?
Yes, I've heard all sorts of things, and I am one to really just try and be present, present in the moment and what's happening now, and how I'm to serve now. And thank you for recognizing the confidence. I don't think of myself as really confident. Like, it's not a word that what for me, it's about fulfillment. I'm so fulfilled, and it's like I can say, yes, I changed lives. I changed lives. It's more the fulfillment and the excitement of that. Lucky me. I get to do that. And so I see humanity really evolving. 2027, I see what's happening, but it's really, for me, we're all here to clear our blocks that are getting in the way of the divine flowing through us, of source, God, spirits flowing through us. And in order to really do that to the greatest level requires presence. Am I a pro at that? Am I a master at that? No. No, I'm very human.
Yeah.
I do my best, but it still takes effort after all these years. And I am like that. That's why I go for 2 walks in nature a day, because that's part of my spiritual practice, and to be present in that. So when I jump to the future, to me, we sure, certain things can be predicted and we can have ideas, but it's never exactly as we think. Just like every one of my clients, I always say, you're powerful beyond what you can imagine, because we can't imagine. So everybody that comes to work with me, yes, they have a goal. They want to be a certain way. They want to feel a certain way, whatever it is. And when I ask them at the end, did you ever think you would become the person you are now? And they say, no, I couldn't imagine this. Could never imagine. So I don't bother imagining the future. It's like, the more I can be present and be connected with my soul, with my spirit, and of service, and expressing myself authentically, that's a high vibration. I'm influencing the future and the past, because really, ultimately, there is, even time is an illusion. There's so much in our world that's really elusive. We're really all one, and everything is happening at the same time. And that's a challenge and a half to get into that zone. I touch into it at times. It's really something when I do, but it's not long lived.
No, I mean, and this that actually comes up in the show a lot. The idea of time not really existing; it only exists because we see it as a construct, and that's to try to wrap your head around that. As trippy as it gets, it's mind blowing when you actually can open your mind to that. I mean, besides when I have to worry about time with jobs and whatnot over the years, I always have had an open mind, and I've always not really cared about time. Like on a day off before I had kids, it didn't matter what time of the day was to me. I just did what I was going to do, and time didn't exist. But unfortunately, certain things in life make you worry about time, and then you're stuck in it. And being a podcaster, you have a schedule, and schedules mean you have to pay attention to time. So I can't just be doing what I want to do and then skip an interview that I have scheduled, because it doesn't life unfortunately does not work that way. I can't show up to my computer 2 hours late to do it, and the person's not going to be sitting there still just waiting for me because they don't care about time either. That's not. It's unrealistic. I mean, time is important. It is important, but it's also important to realize that it's not controlling everything. We can manipulate it as we need to at certain times.
Yes. Yes, that's an important factor, but it is very much part of the human condition.
It is. Which I brought up extraterrestrials a few minutes ago, and that got me thinking because when I talk to healers, there's a certain group of people that I are known to kind of almost like rotate around healers. And I wanted to ask, have you worked with any star seeds?
I don't get into those kind of labels.
Hmm.
I yeah, because I think, why don't I get in? I just don't get into those kind of labels. My view and my experience is pretty darn simple. We're all part of source. We all have a soul that I believe signed up for the lives that we're currently living, and we're all here to grow and evolve wherever we came from. I do, however, when I do chakra readings and I read, I always get a message, the number one thing the person needs to hear, and that'll
Yep.
come through me. So it's really opening myself up and letting the divine move through. And even when I do the readings, I become the person. I merge with them. We're not separate, and it's not a scary thing. And I teach a number of my clients how to merge. It's very beneficial. There really is no separation. I've read lots about star seeds. It's there's a lot of theories. You could say there's some proof, that sort of thing, but there's so many things out there. I mean, I had a visit from a being once that a friend said, I described this being, this blue being and everything. And she said, wow, that sounds like one of those beings from Andromeda. And I said, oh, I don't know anything about Andromeda. And then I read about it, and I was like, whoa, yeah, that was exactly my, we could say paranormal experience. But my approach is just really simple, coming to the center of our being, which is a microcosm of the macrocosm. And when I go so much into thinking, that's all left brain. My work and what I try and do is right brain, which is based in physical sensations, emotion, and beingness, not the left brain thinking brain.
Makes sense. And I mean, as someone who runs a show like this, trust me, extra ultra terrestrials exist. And I've talked to many people that are experiencers and people that talk to them, people that can communicate with them telepathically. They exist. I,
Absolutely.
I mean, I can walk in my backyard and see things in the sky that I can't identify. So it's very true. They exist. But it's I don't know. One of the first people I interviewed on this show was a self-proclaimed star seed, and she's also she's a spirit healer, and she immediately I never heard of star seed before her, and she immediately educated me on the show and made me a believer in star seeds because it makes sense. If reincarnation is real, and if why would spirits only live on this planet if the universe is one as a whole and we all came from the same source, whatever you want to call it, then why would we only be on this planet? Why wouldn't there be other planets? And I've talked to enough past life transgressionists that they've come across past lives on other planets, and it's some are similar to Earth, some are different from Earth, but depends who you're talking to, I guess. But so I mean, I'm sure you come across that at all in your work where you actually have. I don't know if you do past lives. We haven't really brought that up yet, but
Yeah, I used to do past lives years ago, and I just don't get into it that much. And a lot of people want to focus on that for their healing, but it takes the focus off the life today. To me, that your soul has lived multiple lives. You want to keep going back there. You're here, you've chosen this life now. And I believe that our healing that we do today helps our soul in the future, and it affects our past lives. And so sometimes some things come up from past lives that definitely need attention. And with respect to, there are people here who are still partly in the angelic spheres. They're not totally here. And they often really have a hard time on the planet because they're not fully here in human form. They're still part of the angelic realms. There's all sorts of things, and the universe is vast beyond the universe. There's so much going on. And so starseed is one label, just like this being that I experienced from Andromeda, and had the memory that I connected with this being when I was 2 years old, and was part of my life, that this being really helped me. And it was really tall and thin, asexual, blue, very loving, really helped me. And I communicated, and I've met people who, are still from other realms. They're in tune with that here. So anything's possible. I don't have the explanations for it all. But what I do see that's interesting, Jeremy, when I do chakra readings, I believe I can tell if someone's an old soul or a young soul.
Yeah.
Because the young souls, the crown chakra is much smaller than the old souls. The old souls come in. I see some of these people, oh my gosh, these old souls, and they have these really wide crown chakras. And sometimes I say to them, wow, you're feeling the burden of what your soul signed up for. You're feeling the burden because it's weighted. It's kind of heavy, almost sagging a little bit. And they always say, yes, it's so true. I just feel like I signed up for so much. And then when I see the young souls, I don't get too many young souls anymore. They're not interested in coming to me, I guess. I used to get young souls. I get the old souls. I get a lot of old souls and people who have signed up for a lot. And I just had one woman the other day. She's a healer. And I did a chakra reading for her. And she had this really tall, narrow, intensely bright crown chakra. And she came in sort of like for one intense, singular thing. And I said that to her, your soul's calling. And she said, yes, that's true. I was like, whoa, tell me about that. And so, yeah, we're an endless mix.
We are. I mean, it's once you get beyond just the fact that we're human beings, and once you get to the spirit side of things, there's a lot more to this life than anybody could have foreseen, and than most people will recognize even. But I guess the final thing I'm going to ask you is, if you had one message or one thing you want the world to understand and know, what would it be?
It would be that we're all spirit, and that we are powerful beyond what we could possibly imagine. And it's about discovering that within yourself. The light of your being is truth. And truth is power. Truth is power. And so the more you go inward and discover that light, discover the truth of your being, the more powerful you will become.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. That's a great message to give to the world. I really think it is. And you are an author as well, so why don't you just tell us about your books and then where people can find them and you?
Yeah, you can find my books on my website, starofdivinelight.com. You can find them on Amazon. The first book I wrote was really about the throat chakra, and I thought I had more throat chakra issues than anybody else in the world, but it seemed like all my clients had throat chakra issues, and healing the throat chakra is not about healing the throat chakra. It always starts in the root chakra. It's a lack of safety and stability in the world. And that's primarily created. It's my 10-week program to help people really express who they truly are in the world, and however that looks. And that's what the highest level of the throat chakra is about. And that book led me to writing Client Magnet, because I started working with coaches who weren't getting enough clients. And then I just, I could see where their energy was flowing well, where they had a lot of light, and where their blocks were, help them clear their blocks. And they started attracting clients. That was my second book. And then my book that I wrote just a year ago, From Block to Powerful, Unlocking Your Inner Truth, so you can step into authentic power. It's sort of my legacy book. It has all sorts of practices from different modalities. They all have meditations in them. They're all a little bit like workbooks. And so that one is really, there's a whole lot in there. So if you feel like you're really, on a spiritual path, that would be maybe more the book to get. But they all talk about the type of meditation that I teach. And I think that would be the most, if you're interested in what I do, if you want to connect with me, it'll be in the show notes, my powerful meditations, learn how to access your subconscious, and then start working in your root chakra to create a greater sense of safety and stability in your life. All my clients who transform deeply, this is the starting point. This is the basis of what I do. And it's what I started doing all those years ago. And I promise you keep doing it and it'll transform your life. So it's the powerful meditations link. We'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, and I definitely will put it in the show notes. That's without a doubt. And I want to thank Cheryl for coming on, because it's been a great conversation and I've learned a lot. And I hope my audience has as well. You all know where you can find me. If you don't by now, just shame. I get sick of saying the shame thing, but damn shame. But it's on the outro. Check that. If you're watching, you already know where to find me because you're watching from where I am. So there you go. And I will be back tomorrow night with one more interview for the Halloween week. I swear it's like fate that every Halloween week I get so many interviews lined up and I don't even plan it. So you guys are lucky. I don't do these interviews as often as I used to anymore. Damn kids. But come back tomorrow and check that one out. Tomorrow's going to be about past lives, so that's going to be a fun one. This author wrote a book and a half. I have it. I haven't touched it because it's freaking huge and I don't have time to read anything anymore with 3 kids, but it's huge and I do plan on reading it one day and I can't wait to hear more about it tomorrow from him. But hope you all enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Come back and we'll see you next time. And thank you one more time, Cheryl.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's been an honor.
The honor's been mine. Have a good one, everybody.